Hi, and welcome to my review of Season 20, Episode 8 of South Park. If you haven't seen the episode titled Members Only yet, the link is in the description. This episode begins at Tom's rhinoplasty, and Caitlyn Jenner and two men, I guess they're from the Secret Service, I don't know, are shown in the lobby, and then Dr. Tom invites Caitlyn inside of the procedure room. And inside the procedure room, we see Mr. Garrison. He's sitting in some kind of seat, in some kind of weird chamber thing. He is getting a wig placed on his head. A wig that looks like Donald Trump's hair, because, you know, he's representing Donald Trump in the South Park universe. Then he asks Caitlyn if he looks presidential. Then Mr. Garrison tells Caitlyn that he feels like he's finally ready to take care of business and do what really matters. And then he proceeds to have his skin tanned. In the next scene, Heidi and Eric are inside of the Space Center. And then they tell the receptionist that they need to go to Mars. Cartman asks the receptionist if they have crappy Wi-Fi in Mars, and the receptionist was like, yes, and Cartman was like, okay, we'll go to Mars. But the receptionist tells them to take a number and join the rest of the people who are waiting to go to Mars. Cartman and Heidi are surprised to see that there are a lot of people waiting in the lobby who also want to go to Mars. At South Park Elementary, PC Principal is shown in his office. He seems like he's angry about something. He's yelling. He's knocking stuff over. And then Mr. Mackey shows up at the door and says that the president-elect is there to speak with him. Then Mr. Garrison comes into the room and he takes a seat. Mr. Garrison asks PC Principal if he remembers when he fired him. PC Principal tells Mr. Garrison that he's sorry that his position was terminated at South Park Elementary. Then Mr. Garrison asks PC Principal if he's really sorry. Mr. Garrison points out that PC Principal helped create who he is and said that he insisted that he was a bigot and now he's the president. I guess basically Mr. Garrison says that he wants to get even with PC Principal in a gross way. Next, some member berries are shown in an alley behind the restaurant. And in order to get into the restaurant, they have to say a password. They say the password and they meet up with an elderly member berry sitting at a table. They ask him if he members them. He says he doesn't. And then the younger member berries refresh his mind by saying that they pushed one of their comrades into Caitlyn Jenner's drink. Then the elderly member berry says that he does remember them, and because of them, they won the election. Then he tells them good job, and there is still something that he wants them to do. Back in Denmark, the trollers are still stuck inside of the server room at the Troll Trace headquarters. Gerald bangs on the door and tries to get out, and then it turns out that the CEO of TrollTrace.com is overlooking them in a balcony in the server room. One of the trollers says to the CEO that they tricked them, and the CEO says that the US government tricked them, actually. He says that if the US government handed the trollers over to them in Denmark, they would agree not to go forward with the Troll Trace program. Gerald says that they can't hold people prisoner, and he hasn't done anything. And then the CEO gives Gerald a cell phone so he can call anyone he wants, but he'll have to tell him why he is in Denmark. The CEO says he's going to use them to set the world on fire, and the ashes from the fire will create a new world where everyone is happy and doesn't have secrets, just like Denmark. In South Park, Mr. Garrison goes over to a grocery store, and when he walks in, he puts in an effort to make his presence known. He ends up putting a man on blast because in the past, I guess this man works at the store. The man tells him that he couldn't double bag his groceries, and then he asks him if he wants to double bag something else. And he's interrupted when he gets a cell phone call from, I guess, the general back at the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. And the general says that he's needed there, and that the Danish have released a statement that they may be going to war. At the Broflovsky residence, Ike is shown on his computer. He gets a FaceTime call from Gerald. He answers the call. Gerald tells Ike to log into his school board account and to do some trolling for him. Dick points out to the other trollers that Gerald is using his own son to troll for him. And he asks why he's doing it. Gerald says that he's doing that so that people will think that Skank Hunt is still out there trolling, and that Denmark, I think, will think that they have the wrong guy. Back at the Space Center, Eric and Heidi are shown in the lobby waiting with everyone else, trying to go to Mars. Then it turns out that Butters is there too. Eric tells Butters that he doesn't need to go to Mars because he's a male, chauvinistic, sexist pig. Butters says that he's seen the light and he thinks that boys are being treated unfairly and things are about to get worse. In the next scene, a whole bunch of member berries, like in a huge mob, go over to Washington, D.C., and they make their way to the White House, and they enter the Oval Office. Meanwhile, Ike is still trolling on the internet under the guidance of his father, Gerald. Sheila is shown walking by in the hall, and then she catches Ike trolling on the internet. Gerald hangs up just before Sheila walks into the room. Sheila gets a call from Gerald. Sheila tells Gerald that Ike has been trolling on the internet. And after she says that, Gerald pretends to act mad and surprised. Then Sheila gives Ike the phone so he can talk to Gerald. Gerald tells Ike to just stay calm and act like he's yelling at him. And then when Sheila gets the phone back, Gerald tells her to not to tell anybody anything, and he'll deal with everything when he gets back home. After Sheila leaves, Gerald asks Ike to do some more trolling on the internet. In the next scene, Mr. Garrison goes over to the Pentagon. A general gives Mr. Garrison a little tour of some of the rooms in the Pentagon. He also gives him some keys and a folder that contains some government secrets. Then they go into the diplomatic strategy room. Back at the Space Center, Cartman is still confronting Butters about him expecting people to believe that he's a changed person. Butters says that he's a changed man and girls deserve the most respect. Cartman says that Butters forgot to mention how women are funny. Butters says that he doesn't get why people are making a big deal out of women and comedy. Then Cartman begins to get angry, and then Heidi asks if he's okay, and then Cartman was like, "Yeah, I'm good. I just want you to tell me another joke." And then Heidi says, "Have you heard the joke about the skunk and the skeleton?" And then Butters is all like, "Ha ha ha, that's funny already." Then Cartman gives Butters an angry look, and he suspects that he is up to something. Back at the Pentagon, Mr. Garrison is still in the diplomatic strategy room. The generals tell Garrison that countries all around the world are forming armies, and the entire world will have access to everyone's internet history, thanks to Troll Trace. They also say that the world has been uncertain and unstable, and they should order all naval vessels to the Bering Sea, because when the Chinese see the US's internet history, they will most likely attack the US. Vladimir Putin is shown in his office. He gets news that the Danish are going to proceed with their Troll Trace program. Putin is concerned because with Troll Trace, his girlfriend will be able to see his internet history. He says that the Danish must be stopped, and they must know where the US stands on that. He gets a call from the Oval Office, and some member berries are on the phone saying, "Member this, member that," into the phone. And Vladimir's all like, "What is this?" Back at the Space Center, Eric, Heidi, Butters, and some other people have their numbers called. And then they all receive a tour of one of the rooms in the center, which is led by Elon Musk. And inside of the room, there are different inventions and concepts for things. Back at the Pentagon, workers in the diplomatic strategy room are asking Mr. Garrison how to respond to different requests from different countries. Mr. Garrison gets a call from the UK Secretary from Foreign Affairs, who has some advice for him. The Secretary tells Mr. Garrison not to eat the member berries. He says that everyone in London ate member berries, they wanted to go back to the past, and things aren't going well for them. The city of London can be seen outside the window of the office that he's in, and stuff is on fire. It's just chaos outside. The Secretary says that member berries affect judgment, and they get into people's heads. Then all of a sudden, Mr. Garrison gets all offended by that, and he says no one is getting into his head, and then he asks the Secretary if he's insulting him, and then he just hangs up in his face. Back at the Space Center, the tour wraps up. Elon Musk tells everybody, "Thank you for coming to the tour," and all the tourists are like, "What?" Because they were expecting to go to Mars. Cartman asks if they're going to Mars. Musk says that it's going to take years for them to go to Mars, and it'll take a lot of very smart people working very hard for a very long time. Butter says maybe they could go to Mars sooner with the help of his friend Heidi. And he says, did I mention that my friend Heidi is very smart and funny? And then Elon Musk asks, how funny? Back at the White House, all the member berries are having a party in one of the rooms. Then a group of elderly member berries make their way into the Oval Office, where they meet with the member berries that called Mr. Vladimir Putin on the phone. One of the elderly berries asks the younger berries who's in charge, and then they go back and forth like, no, I'm in charge, I'm in charge, I'm in charge. And then the elderly berry shoots one of them, and then he asks them if they remember stormtroopers, and then he says, people want to remember, they're gonna remember. In the last scene of the episode, Kyle comes home from school to see Ike sitting in the corner on punishment. Sheila tells Kyle that Ike is the internet troll responsible for saying all those disgusting things on the internet, and that they have to figure out what to tell people when people find out that all that ugliness was coming from their family. After Sheila leaves the room, Kyle asks Ike if he created a war between girls and boys and make people quit Twitter. And then, all of a sudden, Kyle has a flashback back to when Heidi was telling he and Cartman about how she did her emoji analysis and how she figured out that Skank Hunt is an adult and one of the parents. And then that time when his dad was telling him that he should just laugh and make fun of stuff. And then, I guess Kyle finally realizes something. I don't know what he's realizing. They're gonna say this, probably gonna say this next episode. And then he says, oh my god. Then he grabs Ike by the hand, and then they run out of the house. Then Sheila notices that they're gone. She calls their names, and she yells out, what? And that's the end of the episode. And that's a wrap. That's all I have to say. Thank you for watching. Thumbs up if you liked the video. Don't dislike the video, because I don't do dislikes anymore. Just keep it pushing. Follow me on Twitter at ILUMoreThanThis. Subscribe to my channel. If you haven't seen my previous South Park review videos, you might want to check those out too. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.